Good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday. Hope you've had a great week and your weekend has started off well. It is time for another BS and a beer. This time, I know for a fact we're going to be good because this is one I bought at the store not that long ago because I wanted to work some newer and more current stuff into the rotation other than just the old stuff. And that said, this is going to be a lighter one, pun intended on so many ways, as you will see in a second. Boom! We have our beer. This is Medalla Light. It is, where's my notes? There we go, a 4.2% light lager. They actually classify light beers as their own style these days. It is from Compañía Cervecera de Puerto Rico. My Spanish is very rusty, so forgive the bad pronunciation, but essentially that means the Puerto Rican Brewing Company, or the Brewing Company of Puerto Rico. 4.2%, going to be a nice light little beer, or what they would call, I don't even know if there's still terms. I've been out of the beer industry directly for a while, but they used to call them, I know they still call them session ales or session lagers, but I wonder if the term lawnmower lager is still around. I'll get to that in a moment. It smells like beer, and that's the God's honest truth. I'll get to that when I flip this over, but for right now, let's just give it a pour. Oh, there we go. It looks like the TV beers, doesn't it? Every now and then I can actually pour a good one. All right, stay tuned. We're going to flip this over and we're going to talk some polar exploration. Here we are. We are back. We've got our nice... And when I said it kind of smells like beer, essentially what I'm saying is it's such a unique aroma, like your standard ale or lager, like this. It has such a unique and distinct aroma. I should say distinct because, like, when you smell it, if you're blindfolded and you smell that, you know exactly what it is. It's kind of like the smell of a skunk spray. If you've smelled it, you know it as soon as somebody says it, but it's really hard to accurately describe it to anybody else. But that said, let's get in, and because this is, what was it? I'm turning into that guy. 4.2%? Yeah, 4.2%. And as they say, the session ale, which is one you can have a sit down with the lads, have a session, which is exactly what we're doing. So cheers. Yeah, it's very light. Wow. I was kind of expecting it to have a little bit more, but it's really light, really mild, and because of the malts they use, and obviously not a lot of hops, there is a weirdly bready taste to that. But that's not a bad thing. If you're sitting down, especially a place that I would, okay, let's just say this is a good beach beer. I'm not a beach person. I like the beach as a concept. I don't like sand on my feet. Plus, a lot of beaches just way too crowded. However, we're going to have to move away from the sunshine and happiness because we're going to talk about one of the more harrowing, as I described it yesterday, one of the more harrowing parts of one of the most harrowing Antarctic explorations in history. Antarctic exploration, polar exploration is really intriguing to me. And when I started doing this, I asked a friend of mine and I told her what I was doing. And she suggested this because she is a big fan, and this is related to Sir Ernest Shackleton, one of the greatest polar explorers of all time. And this is the tale of the voyage of the James Caird. Probably never heard of that one. Not many people do because it wasn't a full-size boat as we think. But a little background information just to get us going, and I've got my notes right here. In October of 1915, so 110 years ago, well, next month, pack ice in the Weddell or Weddell, one of the two, W-E-D-D-E-L-L, Sea had sunk the main expedition ship, the Endurance. Very, very, actually good book, by the way. I'll talk about that later. Leaving Shackleton and his 27 companions adrift on an ice floe. And by adrift, they mean that. Basically, the ice had surrounded the ship and crushed it in to the point where the ship essentially was immobile and was now officially part of this massive ice floe. Now, the ice flow that they were essentially a part of drifted northward until April of 1916. So 6 months, they were drifting literally wherever the tides and winds decided to take the ice flow, because there was nothing they could do really to steer it. When the ice flow now broke apart, so now the ship was free. So essentially the ship was able to get to a rather desolate looking place right there, simply called Elephant Island. Not much on there. Now, Shackleton decided to take one of the boats. The James Caird is the vessel they actually took. We'll get to the James Caird in a moment. He decided to take it to the South Georgian Islands to seek help. The crazy thing is, it wasn't the closest human settlement, but Shackleton figured it was the one that would keep them out of having to sail into the westerlies. So they decided, smartly so, to do it. Now, Shackleton and 5 men, the other 21 remained, 6 men climbed aboard a 22.5 foot long, and in meters that's about 6.9-ish, basically rowboat, in one of the most inhospitable oceans on the planet, the Southern Ocean. It's what they would call the Furious 40s, those trade winds down in the Southern Hemisphere. But this is something different, because the further south you go, there's less landmass to block the wind, so the wind continuously wraps around. And that's what they call the Furious 50s. And it's been essentially agreed that these 6 men in a 22.5 foot long open rowboat is the greatest small boat journey ever completed in the Furious 50s. I'm going to take a pause, take a sip of this, and then we're going to go back and we're going to talk just about that journey, because I want you to take a moment and imagine this, if you will. That's nice. It's so refreshing. That's a great word for it. This is a good daytime beer. Now, the journey of the James Caird. They left from Elephant Island and ultimately traveled, mind you, over the course of 17 days, from April the 24th to May the 10th of 1916. 17 days took them 800 miles, about 1,300 kilometers, through open ocean in one of the most miserable, inhospitable parts of the water on this planet. And they made that journey from the Elephant Island to the South Georgian Islands. Now, once they get there, they dock, or I don't even know if there's a dock. Basically, they pull up on some rocks. However, they're on the wrong side of the island. So Shackleton and 2 of the men, Tom Crean and Frank Worsley, hiked over the mountains. Over the mountains because there was a whaling station on the other side. But so 3 of the 6 remained where they docked the boat, the James Caird, and the other 3 hiked across the mountains of the island to the whaling station. But it was successful because it worked. The plain and simple fact is, it worked. Every single member, every single one of the 27 of the Endurance crew survived and made it back to England. The James Caird itself, we do have this, after the First World War, in 1919, the James Caird was moved from South Georgia, which is where they left it because they got larger boats. It was returned to England, and since 1922, it's been on regular display at Shackleton's alma mater, Dulwich College. I'm not 100% sure where that is. Zach put it up there, because you're going to be editing this. And can you imagine that, though? I wonder how many people, without even realizing it, walk by this vessel, one of the most the vessel from part of the most incredible polar journey in modern history. Wonder how many of them walk by it without even realizing it. That would be something interesting. If I ever get back over to the UK, I need to find out where Dulwich College is and check that out. That would be very, very cool. So the tale continues, but not for much longer, unfortunately, because the year is now 1921. Shackleton returns to Antarctica to lead the Shackleton Rowett expedition. However, on the 5th of January, the year 1922, after refusing medical care for several smaller heart attacks that he had suffered, Shackleton dies of a massive heart attack, and one of the crew members was on the way back to England with his remains for internment in England when he received word from Shackleton's widow to bury him in South Georgia. And that is exactly where the remains of, I say, one of the greatest polar explorers of all time, Sir Ernest Shackleton, remain, on the South Georgian Islands not far from Antarctica. And from what I've read, coming back to inter his remains, apparently they ran into some pretty nasty weather, and a lot of the crew said it's weirdly kind of fitting that this is how it should be. And I think that I love the polar exploration and the endurance. Actually, Zach, put up a copy of that, or a picture of that. This book I read. It is very good, and there are some very good books about, polar, both Arctic and Antarctic exploration. And I think that stuff is fascinating because, look, we have to say, without people like Shackleton, without people like Sir Edmund Hillary, without people like all the other great explorers who were willing to get onto a floating hunk of wood and travel off into the unknown. I mean, well, granted, by the time Shackleton was gone, the early 20th century, we had a much better idea of what was going on. But still, the fact that they had to go down to that, essentially an uninhabitable mass of ice on the bottom part of the planet, truly is incredible. But without those people, who knows where society would be? And thankfully they're there, because, no, I've said it before, I continue to say, man, water is where the monsters live. And that, I absolutely love stuff like this. I love little bits of history, little history nuggets, as it were, and this is, weirdly, this is perfect bar conversation. This is exactly what you would be doing sitting at a bar or sitting at a cookout with some of your friends, sitting around having a couple of drinks. Be like, oh, hey, by the way, I heard this the other day. And that's what it's about. It's sharing random things with all of you guys. And I'm glad you enjoy it. I hope you do, at least. Because I enjoy doing this, and I'm going to continue to do so, because there's a lot of little things that I've always wanted to try to bring up and talk about, but really just didn't have an opportunity, in these little BS sessions, the perfect opportunity. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to tease for next week. We're going to do our send-off, and I'm going to leave you with your weird thought for the evening. Next week, and this is in the realm of, I got bored, so I decided to go on the internet, and I thought, board games are fun. We love board games. So I decided to go and see if I can find some of the weirder histories of the more popular board games, and I found a few interesting ones, let's put it that way. But there we are. You will have to wait until next Friday to see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have one more sip on camera of the Medalla Light. And as they would say in Puerto Rico, salud if you're having one along with me. Salud to you too. Be safe if you're doing anything. Yep. That's just a good beer you could sit and just mindlessly kind of work at while you're talking to people. Hey, look at that. But I'm going to leave you with this strange thought as you continue on your weekend. And if you really get bored, maybe this will pop back into your head. If you think about it, if you really think about it, crabs probably think fish can fly. Have a good night, everybody.